Welcome back to the Pro Series Podcast. This is episode 166, and today's guest is Kristi Jenkins. She's a real estate agent. She's been in the business for about 2 decades now. She's a managing broker, entrepreneur, speaker. We talk about that all. So if you're into real estate or just motivational speaking, this is a great podcast episode for you. But before we get into the episode, please like, subscribe, and review the Pro Series Podcast on wherever you listen to podcasts. Now I hope you enjoy episode 166 with Kristi Jenkins. Kristi, thank you so much for hopping on the Pro Series podcast today. I can't wait to get to talk to you about not just real estate, but also just entrepreneurship in general. Because I feel like we were talking off camera, and it just like everything goes together so well, and anybody could relate to it.
Absolutely. Yeah. Thanks for having me, Eric. I'm excited to talk about all the things.
Yeah, before we get into like the main topics that we kind of talked off camera, I want to get into like your background. Like you being a broker, was that something you always wanted to do? Like where did your career start?
Yeah. No, that's an interesting question. I like to say I fell into real estate kind of accidentally.
Mm.
I was out of college. I worked in a corporate big gaming company here in the Pacific Northwest, and I was doing marketing and corporate communications. I actually graduated thinking I was going to go to law school, but then my husband and I met and we decided to get married. And I thought I'm just going to put that off for a little while because I didn't want to be in my first year of law school when we were in our first year of marriage. So I thought I'm just going to, kind of put that off, got a great corporate job, and then had my first kid. And I thought as much as I knew I wanted to work, I knew that I didn't want to be gone from her full time
Mm.
every day. But I knew I still had so much to contribute, and I knew that I could be a big part of our financial future and success. And so my mom had recently gotten into real estate, and she was doing great, but needed a partner. And so for many years, she and I were partners together, and it worked out great because we didn't try to build a business that was enough to sustain both of us full time, like very aggressively. It was something, she'd watch the kids and I'd take clients out and vice
Oh, that's
versa.
cool.
And it really worked out well as a young working parent to have that kind of support from her, who cared just as much about my kids, more than she did about the professional business relationship. So it worked out great.
Awesome.
And then several years ago, she retired, and that's, I think, kind of when my passion for this job grew and changed. As so many of us, it's hard to find. I was talking to somebody the other day. It's hard to find somebody who's been doing the same thing for over 20 years. I think that's just a thing of the past.
Yeah.
And so I think that is, you kind of get antsy, and you know that you're good at what you do, but is this all that there is? And that's kind of when my career took a little bit of a pivot, and I started changing my business model a little bit and getting a lot more kind of grounded in who I was and really like what I was after, my niche market, my niche clientele, rather than just, I think most new agents they'll go anywhere, they'll take anybody, they'll, kind of do whatever the job takes and requires. And I really kind of had to figure out how to hone in on what did my business over the next 20 years look like if I was going to keep doing this, and kind of narrow that path down a little bit.
Oh yeah. What was that like when you went from your corporate job to your real estate job? Like did you just quit completely or did you go part-time a little bit in real estate?
I went full time into real estate, and
Oh
I
wow.
think that for me, it and this is one of the things that I talk to newer agents about. I realize that so much of what I've been doing in my corporate job, from the marketing aspect to the, negotiating to the project management, I was doing a lot of events for the company. I knew that a lot of that would translate
Mm-hmm.
into real estate, and I didn't realize how much of what I'd been learning and growing and doing and wanted to do in the legal field would transition over into real estate. So many pieces of that I found that I didn't even think would relate. And so I think it was an easier jump for me than I thought, although for a while it was, kind of a way that I was surviving.
Mm-hmm.
And then it turned into, more of a way that I could thrive as a business owner once I kind of figured out where I really wanted to be and who I really wanted to serve.
I always find it interesting of hearing how someone left, a full salary job and kind of went to a job that's kind of pretty much all commission.
Yeah.
It's always,
Yeah.
and you had a family, right? How many kids did you have
Yeah.
at that time?
I had just the one at the time, and I was
Okay.
pregnant with my second.
Oh, wow. Did that add
Yeah.
even more stress to it? Kind of
It
just,
did. Yeah, it definitely did. And fortunately, my husband had a great, very stable income and stable job. And we were living under our means at the time. So we hadn't kind of expanded our budget. And so it did allow, but also, this is the other thing too. I had a partner who was already
that's
relatively
true.
successful doing that.
That's
And I
awesome.
knew that we could grow it even more together and do it better together. And so I had a little bit of that to fall back on. And I think so many agents who are newer at this now think that they have to go out and do it on their own. They don't latch onto a team or a partner or kind of figure out where their skill sets fit in. And I do think that this can be a very, very lonely, very financially insecure job if
Hmm.
you don't have kind of the right support and resources.
Oh, definitely. Let's go back to like when your mom retired and you kind of went kind of by yourself. So you
Yeah.
didn't get any partner after that, right?
No, nope. And
Okay.
I've got a small team now, but it's mostly a support team.
Okay.
Um, and I think that's partly because uh, I like to do the things I like to do the way I like to do them. And it's very
Yeah.
hard, I think, to find
Oh,
that
yeah.
perfect partnership, that perfect business relationship where you really do kind of connect on a different level and feel really supported in your strengths and weaknesses in that. My mom was great because, she knew me so well, but we are so completely opposite in the way that we do things, in the way that we handle things. And she just had some great skills and resources. But when it came time for her to retire, it really was time for that. And she had kind of a whole other life. My dad was going to retire as well. And so it made sense for her to do that. I think I was really ready to take on the responsibility. And I'd been leading our business partnership for many years before that. So I really, it wasn't a surprise. It wasn't anything new. I'd kind of been, figuring out how to make that work for a while before. So
Okay. And then when after that did you start going into your speaking engagements and starting doing that? Was that like a right away type of thing?
no, no, that's actually been more recently. And I think
Oh,
that was,
okay.
you know, for a long time, and I don't know if this is, kind of a generational thing, but, business coaching is not, you don't, it's not nearly as popular. I'm almost 50. It's not nearly as popular for our older demographic who kind of built businesses. I didn't really understand how a business coach could impact me, could help me grow my business, could think of ways that maybe I could improve my systems and processes. And it really was finding somebody who saw some different things in me who said, you know what? I think that in addition to this, you've got, X, Y, and Z that could be really impactful in these areas. And I think that you would really feel a lot of success and growth if you were to invest in these kind of branches of your
Hmm.
business. And I think that that really gave me, and speaking was one of those things because after 21 years in real estate and mentoring and training a lot of agents, there's a lot of pieces of my job that I think could really elevate this industry a lot. And I think that I have really high expectations. And I think that translates and there's a need for that in our industry. And so that was really, it took somebody tapping into me and seeing something in me that I maybe didn't even see in myself
Mm,
that led to me doing some more speaking engagements and doing more mentorship and training than I'd done in the past too.
absolutely. It's great to have outside eyes look at what you're doing because when you're doing it every day, you kind of
Yeah.
lose track and you think it's good and you think it's
Yeah.
the best thing to do, but that might not be the best thing to do.
I think you lose that perspective. You get so focused and, you stay in your lane and you kind of figure out what this path looks like that you kind of forget that there's
Hmm.
all of this around,
Yeah.
too, that can either be beneficial or not. But you've got to figure out how all that plays into your path and what your next steps are, kind of the growth of your job as it takes you into the next 10 years or, another into the next kind of phase of your business relationship.
Oh yeah. Well, as we're talking about growth, one thing that we kind of talked off camera is collaboration, and I think it's huge in real estate, but I think it's huge in really any business. And I feel like there's a negative view on people thinking collaboration is something like you're helping your competition, but
Yeah.
you think of it differently, correct?
Oh, absolutely. I think that so many. agents that I worked with when I was new in the business were so concerned that anything that they talked about or encouraged other people to do or shared their resources, those people were going to take them and use them and take their clients and take their business. And I think that it is so important to remember that nobody can do what you do the way you do it. So you may have a great idea, but nobody's going to turn around and host that exact same event with the same people and attract the same clientele in the same area that you are. Uh, there really are 20% of us doing 80% of the work. So you can
Mm,
share
I
all
like
that
that.
you want. Maybe one person is going to take that to heart, and maybe they're going to do it 50% the way that you suggested that they do, but they're going to put their own spin on it. And I think that for a long time, when you work in an area like I do, and I grew up in this area, I raised my kids in the same area that I'm still working in today. You forget that not real estate isn't done the way that it's done in your area all over.
Mm,
I mean, it is different in every state, oftentimes in every different counties. And I didn't have the opportunity, didn't even realize how much growth that I could get from people in other states. Just seeing, and that was a huge, thing that social media exposed me to was,
I bet.
all of these. There's this great agent that I become friends with up in Canada, and he is like the king of events, and he does this pumpkin giveaway, and he has now done it after several years, and it attracts hundreds of people, so much so that he's talking about buying the farm that grows the pumpkins
Wow.
because he's now, and so you hear those stories and you think, oh my gosh, like I could do this in a different way. I
Yeah.
could do, it makes sense here to do it in this way, and I put this little spin on it, and I attract people in this way, and you just realize how much different your business can look. And I think especially when you're kind of in like a either a slow time or in a little bit of a rut, it's so inspiring to look at and see what other agents are doing and see how you can adapt your business to make it something that you continually are passionate about because you've got this new influx of like excitement around it.
Oh yeah. And I think that's a great way to think of collaboration. I think I know personally know designers that don't want to work with other designers in the same area because they feel like it's competing. And I think that's a
Yeah.
very old school way of thinking about it, like kind of like you said.
Yeah.
But I feel like social media nowadays, people, even they won't even follow competition, but we have it so easy to see what they're doing, not in a negative way, but
Yeah.
to kind of bring it in and use it as a tool. I do a lot of social media content stuff and I help people out kind of build their social media content. And I say, hey, find someone that is like you, say in California or on the opposite
Yes.
side of the country, see what's working for them. Don't copy them, but kind of bring it into your business and kind of put your own spin on it. It's okay to do
Yeah.
that.
I literally was going to do a video day with my videographer a couple weeks ago, and I was tasked with like literally finding and writing down hooks and scripts from other agents that I respected in other areas, because what you're attracted, I'm trying to attract clients who trust me, who like me, who want to work with me.
Hmm.
And if I'm seeing something from somebody that I respect and I like, and I'm attracted to that, then I can bet that it's probably going to work in the same way for me. The people who like me or attracted to me, who want to work with me, are going to be attracted to that same idea that I was from them. And
Yeah,
I've got a friend Blakely down in California, and she does some amazing videos. I even DM'd her and I said, hey, I'm stealing this and this and this from you, and I'm going to put my own spin on it. I said, but those are great videos. And she said, I stole them from somebody else. I mean, that's just, kind
exactly.
of the way that it works, is just you put your own
Exactly.
take on it, and, you adapt it for your market and for your area and for the way that you talk about things. And I think as long as you're consistent in your messaging, in the way that you present things, and you continue to make it authentic and really come from the heart, you can adapt just about anything and not make it a copy. It's just an
Hmm.
inspiration.
Absolutely. And social media is such a weird world where we were talking about it before we started recording. And you have a topic of social media over 40, like doing it before, after 40. And, I'm close to 30 now, and I'm finding social media becoming hard because I feel like social media is targeted towards the generation that's kind of like in high school going into college type of thing. And it's becoming harder for my generation to even do
Yeah.
social media. And it's changing on the daily. You like you said, you go to a seminar and the next day Meta changes the algorithm and what you just learned yesterday is a completely new world. It's a new
Yeah,
platform. It's
exactly.
impossible to do. But what is your mentality and your thinking on when you go to social media to market it? Are you going into it thinking a certain thing? Like I sometimes make a post, put so much time into it, and then it gets like not what I want for engagement rates.
Yeah.
And I put a post that took me 2 seconds and it blows up.
I, I've done the exact same thing, and you think, oh, this is really going to resonate, and this is so on topic, and it's so relevant, and you spend time and you think about it, and probably overthink it, and you record it, and you put it on there, and like nobody cares,
Mhm.
and then you record something that was just kind of off the cuff, or in my car on my way somewhere, and that gets more views and more engagement than anything else. So I think for me, and I know that real estate agents are all over the board with this, but I go on social media because I want people to get to know me. I'm not using it as a lead magnet. I'm not gauging any ROI from my social media. I'm simply going on there to attract people who like what I'm doing, who appreciate the kind of care I take of my clients, who appreciate my outside the box thinking, my creativity, my storytelling when I'm listing a house. I want people to like and trust me, and that's the business I want to attract. If they see that that's something that connects with them, and they feel like that's a good, those are good qualities in a real estate agent, then I trust that they're going to come to me. It's easy enough to, find me and connect with me. But I'm definitely using it to build credibility, to build relationships, to build trust online, and then letting kind of the rest of that take its course.
Yeah. I think people also forget, like you say, you have a friend in California and you meeting all these people on social media of how
Yeah,
much it is a networking tool.
it is.
It's
Absolutely.
it's not just LinkedIn anymore. It's literally anything.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. And I think it's so important too, like you were saying when we introduced social media, it does change. And I think one of the things that overwhelmed me as I was kind of pivoting in this business a little bit was, I got into real estate thinking I was writing contracts and showing homes and, guiding clients through a process. I didn't think that I was going to be a marketing manager and a social media manager and a videographer and a photographer and, having to figuring out AI and, there's
Oh,
so many different pieces that this job requires now that I not only was not trained to do, but didn't really think that that was going to be part of my job. And it is
mhm.
it is so much more complex now than it was when I started in a lot of ways. And there's a lot of more tools and resources now than there were, but I don't think that that changes the complexity of
Mhm.
what my job is. And I think it's important to remember that you don't have to be good at all of those things. You just have to have a couple of great resources to help you.
Mhm.
And I think knowing where your weaknesses are or what takes you, it's not even weaknesses. I've found that uh, I think that I can do really well at a lot of things, but it's not always the most efficient use of my time. So what takes me I could decide that I'm going to do something and it takes me 3 hours, and I could have hired somebody and it would have taken them 15 minutes to edit a video, for instance, or, to spend a couple of hours recording and I've got 30 videos rather than me trying to figure out how to position and the lighting. There's all these things that you realize you could do, but what is the best use of your time? And keeping that end goal in mind is that, you're trying to build a business, you're trying to earn the trust and the relationship of these people. So what do you spend your time on? What is it worth
Mhm.
that to you to have some other good resources you can fill in those pieces that you're either not that great at or just don't have the time to commit to it?
Yeah. I love that mentality because especially nowadays, even with designing and real estate agents, there's so many out there. And
Yeah.
you need to stick out like a sore thumb and be able to kind of it's almost like when why people watch reality shows. They start to relate to them or they're envious of their life. And you
Yeah.
want people to follow you in that kind of that way. What do you see of other real estate agents on social media that are missing the point on their marketing side of social media? Like post
Um,
wise.
yeah. I think a lot of times people just they overthink a lot of agents overthink the messaging and
Oh,
overthink how scripted it needs to be, and how they keep it very inside the box. I don't
yeah.
think most people go onto social media to watch you give a tour and talk about your listing from a
Yeah.
very stiff standpoint. Highlight. One of the things I always have my clients do when I'm listing a house is they create a top 10 list for me.
Okay.
What are the top 10 things that they loved about living here? And it could be the house, the
Hmm.
yard, the community, the neighborhood, but it gives me the ability now to market that story to this whole potential group of buyers that are going to come to the house, both on social media, in person, at open houses. And I love the idea of doing that. I think too many agents just think inside the box that this is, social media is not your traditional marketing tool. It's a way for you to get creative, and storytelling is a great way to do that. And I love the idea of attracting another buyer to the house because they've fallen in love with the things that the people who are leaving the house are leaving to them. And
Yeah.
it's just a great way too to integrate, those new buyers into the community too, because it gives them this starting point that's so much further ahead than just empty walls and blank spaces. It gives them a way to understand how the former owners lived in it, and how how they can create that, make that a home and not just a house that they've bought. It definitely brings a lot of subjectivity to it instead of just
Yeah.
walls. Yeah.
I love the top 10 thing because there's going to be at least one of those things that's going to relate to someone out there.
Yeah.
And again, in like what you said, make it a home. A lot of times we see these houses on Realtor.com, and it's maybe those people have already moved out, their furniture's out, the character's
Yeah.
out of the house. But having that top 10 list will allow to like picture, maybe the kid's favorite hiding spot underneath the steps or something like
Yeah.
that. It gives you that home feature that might sell a person to buy that house.
Absolutely, 100%. And I think at the very least, it gives you a way to build a deeper connection with
Hmm.
that next, kind of group of people that are coming in. And it just is, open houses are a great tool for agents to connect with potential buyers. But so many agents miss that opportunity because they think that all they're doing is, opening the doors and welcoming people in. But if you've got some of that story to tell that doesn't translate in the marketing remarks, that doesn't, it's not on Zillow, it's that personal subjective feeling. I think it also gives you as the agent another way to really connect with people, and that translates into selling the house because you've connected on a deeper level with those buyers.
Oh yeah. I think we both are part of an industry that has it so easy for content creation.
Yeah.
Because I mean, like my side of the business design, we have that whole process, the finished product, but you have the house, the open houses, all this stuff you be creating content with. It's more than just the for sale sign in the front yard that I
So
see so
much.
many times, or just a sold sign. There's if you're just doing that, the for sale sign, the sold sign, contingent sign, you're doing yourself a disservice.
Absolutely. Yeah. And that's not, that's building a transactional based business,
Hmm.
right? I am in the relationship based business. That's what I do. If you're going to stay in this job for more than a couple of years, you have to think of being a real estate agent as a relationship based business. Because if this is just transactional, then yes, you're putting, up sold signs, and you're hosting open houses, and you're carting those, stupid signs in the back of your car
Hmm.
all over, and that's all that it is. It's just a transaction based career. But if you really want to build something long term, if you want to have repeat clients, if you want to be a referral source, then you've got to think of this as a relationship based business. And everything that you do has to be thought of with that end goal in mind. How am I connecting with people? How am I showing my value in my neighborhood, and who knows my name, and how am I involved in the community, and how am I supporting other small businesses, and how am I connecting and networking with other people and growing that referral business of vendors and contractors so that I've got great people that I can recommend to my clients to do, and do that if you're just, focused on one transaction after another.
I love that. Yeah. And that's kind of the next point I want to get into is client loyalty. I think any business can relate to this. You have a client of some sort, usually, especially if you're in sales, but how do you go about getting your loyalty of a client? I think that sometimes people struggle with that in the very beginning.
Yeah. I think for a long time I didn't have a really great client management system,
Okay.
and I had an Excel spreadsheet, and it was very old school, and and it wasn't very robust by any means. But having an easily usable client retention system is incredibly important. And from that, you keep in touch. It is not your client's job to remember you and the job that you did for them. It's your job to remind them that beyond the transaction, you still have a lot of value.
Hmm.
And I think that's the way that I approach client loyalty, is that it's not about reminding my clients that I'm still in real estate. It's reminding them that I'm available for their referrals, that there's these events coming up in their neighborhood. It's that there's a small business that they might want to think about supporting. It's that there's this holiday and they're at the top of my list. And that's why I'm hand delivering them a gift to their front porch. It's all of those little things. I don't need to overwhelm them with emails about what I'm doing. I need to just drip little pieces to them over long periods of time that remind them that I'm providing a value and a service well beyond the transaction. And I think I really do believe 100% that that is the way that my business will sustain me, because I put out a great newsletter that I'm super proud of. I've been putting that out for over 4 years. And it's the same mess. I mean, people get overwhelmed. You talk about some of these ways to stay in touch with your clients. If you just take a little bit of time to get that process down, and it's repeatable, it is so easy to just keep doing that. And especially when you see that, I get some of the most engagement, I get more comments back, more emails back from people who say, oh my gosh, I didn't even realize, Salmon Days was this weekend, or I used them too, and they did a great job for my pets, and I will definitely have them come back. You get all those, and you realize that people really do care. And my newsletter is nothing about me selling them real estate. It is all about me and the community.
Hmm.
And I think that's something that people can easily replicate in their own area. And I think it definitely has been an incredibly valuable part of my client loyalty.
Yeah, I've had quite a few real estate agents on the podcast, and I've realized the very successful ones are not just real estate agents, they're also community leaders.
Yeah.
And I feel like that's like what you just explained makes the biggest difference on people. Because again, there's so many real estate agents out there, especially after COVID, and
Yep.
it's like there's so many fish in the sea, and you have to stick out somehow. And just to be able to relate to them and have that newsletter letter and kind of point out different things that are going on in the community and you be looked at as the community leader
Yeah.
is a great thing. Even if they're reaching out to you after you sold them the house, or maybe they're not ready to sell the house and they're like, hey, do you have a contractor or do you have a painter? Like
Yep.
that's huge, huge benefit for you.
It is. And that's another reason why I think that my experience and my longevity in this industry is so helpful to my clients, because I do have a very curated, very extensive list of contractors that are not just names that I've pulled. These are people I've used, people my clients have used, people that have consistently given me and my sphere great service, great prices, great, and they've been loyal, and they will
Hmm.
do just about anything for me or my clients, which oftentimes too, timing and just getting people hired in the time that you need stuff done in is really tough as well. So it's a
Oh
matter of
yeah.
finding a great contractor at a great price that can meet your deadline. And so, having that curated list, I think is really important. And I get, constant requests for different types of contractors. And so I think that that's been a huge part of questions that I get from both past, current, and future clients is how can I help them with a referral?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Do you find yourself networking more with real estate agents or people that are like contractors, painters, designers that could help build your business?
Yeah. I think it's a little bit of both. I'm
Okay.
part of it. My group that I work with here in the area hosts monthly seminars. We just had one yesterday. It's the first Monday of every month where we bring in real estate agents who have kind of specialties in different areas. Um, Yesterday we had a couple on there who have built some great teams, and
Hmm.
they talked about how do you build a great team, and what are some of the pitfalls, what are the pros and cons, what do you need to look for, how do you need to evaluate whether it's working, and everything down to kind of the finances of it. How do you pay virtual assistants versus in person, and is it better to, I mean, all of those kinds of things we talked about. So that's open to real estate agents from every brokerage. We do it at a winery because who doesn't love, we're in
Yeah.
Seattle, Woodinville Winery, who doesn't love a little bit of a boozy event? And it just attracts people, and it shows that we care about elevating the industry. So I think that's an important part of what I do. I think probably more than that is connecting with community leaders, vendors. I'm part of a couple different networking groups because, just like you said, everybody knows probably 16 different real estate agents at any given time. And I think it's a matter of showing and providing that you've got a different value,
Mm.
that you can service clients differently. And I want to I, it's my job to prove my value to other people. I don't expect to be on a list of somebody's referrals who's never used me or worked with me before and have them refer to me. So it's a game of building trust, and I think you can only do that if you show up, and
Yeah.
you've got to be present for those community events and networking events, and kind of just making sure that you practice what you preach. And just like you said, community leaders and connectors, they're involved.
Yeah.
And if you're not involved, you can't expect other people to trust you and want to use you either. So,
No, not at all. So when did you get into this? You said a couple years ago you got into the speaking engagements. What was what was that turning point? Why did you want to go into that?
um, I think I've always felt really comfortable talking to people in larger groups. I've mentored, a lot and trained newer agents. Um, I think that there's this, kind of, you know, idea that who would want to hear from me in a larger sense. Like there's
Mm.
this kind of fear that, like, what do I have to offer on a larger scale, that kept me from
Okay.
probably doing it even sooner than I did, because it was like I'm not the top salesperson in my market. I'm not, the number one, agent that everybody calls, whose billboards and stuff are all over. That's not me. I have a different value to give to people. And so I think, like I said, it required somebody else to bring that to my attention, to say, hey, I think you'd be good at this. And for me to realize, what, I do have something different to give and something to offer that is a branch of. I had to think of it as, I've got this real estate business and this is my core and it will always be my core. But what are some of these other areas that I could be investigating that could just continue to provide a different type of value, a different type of service, and reinforce to people that I am an expert in the field, that I know my clients and I know my area. I've, raised my kids in the same community. They went to the same schools that I'm servicing now. And so I've got, a lot of hyper local knowledge and information, in addition to a lot of real estate, that I think translates really well into, kind of a broader speaking community. And I didn't see a lot of people like me talking on things that were important, like
Mhm.
client loyalty, like social media, when you're over a certain age. I just didn't see that there was a lot of people communicating that message. And I think that it's really important for people to see, those types of examples that are missing.
Oh
So
yeah, I love that. So it's fulfilling type of like a side job that you have.
it is absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah. That's awesome. Well, I want to finish on where people could follow you, maybe where they could see your next speaking event, or
Yeah.
how they could reach out.
Yeah. I've got everything is at Kristi Jenkins Real Estate. So social media handle at Kristi Jenkins Real Estate, Facebook, LinkedIn, YouTube. My website is KristiJenkinsRealEstate.com. So I made it pretty consistent, easy to find. I'm always on my phone, much to my husband's dismay, sometimes at, late at night and on the weekends when it should be, quality family time. But I am one of those traditional real estate agents. I am available 24/7 to my
Have to be.
clients. And I think that that's a really important, piece too. So
Oh yeah.
I welcome, and not just for, if you're coming to the Seattle area or you want some information about the Seattle area, I love talking about my community and my city and referrals for restaurants and all that kind of stuff. So even if it's not for house hunting, but you've got some questions about, this area, I'd love to be a resource.
Awesome, Chrissy. Well, thank you so much for hopping on the Pro Series podcast. I can't wait for someone, maybe a real estate agent or someone inspiring to be a real estate agent to listen to this and maybe reach out.
Oh, thanks, Eric. I appreciate it. Thanks so much for having me on, for giving me the time. It was great conversation. Thank you.
Absolutely loved it.